You earn $110,000 a year. You have a mortgage. You contribute to your 401k. You carry insurance on everything that matters: the house, the cars, the family. You pay your bills on time, and you don't buy things you can't afford. The paycheck arrives, and before you feel it land, the mortgage has cleared, the car payments have processed, the insurance has drafted, and daycare has pulled its share. You did not spend it carelessly. It simply left, allocated before you touched it. By every reasonable standard, you are running your financial life correctly. And yet, at the end of most months, there is almost nothing left to actually build with. That is not a spending problem. That is not a discipline problem. What I'm going to show you in this video is the cost structure of responsible life itself, the architecture that consumes most of a $110,000 household income before any real wealth building can happen. We are going to map it out, line by line, every number, the full picture, and at the end, I will show you where the one real lever is, because there is one. But first, you need to see the system you are operating inside. $110,000 sounds like a solid income, and it is. It puts a household approximately 31% above the national median household income. But income is not the same as margin. Income is what you earn. Margin is what you can actually do something with after you have handled every obligation. A responsible household your size is supposed to handle. This video is about the gap between those two things, and why it is smaller than the income number suggests. I am not going to shame the decisions inside this budget. Every line we look at is a reasonable choice made by a reasonable household. The point is to name the system, because once you can see the architecture clearly, you can find where to act. And right now, most people living inside this income range cannot see it clearly because nobody has ever laid it out for them. Most people assume that a household earning $110,000 a year has a meaningful cushion, that the math works out with room to spare, that after housing, after the cars, after the retirement contributions, there is a comfortable amount left over each month to build with. This assumption is almost universal, and it is what makes the reality so disorienting when you are inside it. The belief is reinforced by comparison. 110,000 is above average. If the average person can manage, surely you are managing well. The logic seems reasonable, but it misses something important. What it misses is that the cost of responsible life, the actual price tag of running a household correctly, with insurance, with retirement savings, with appropriate housing, with the obligations that come with a middle-class professional life, scales with income in ways that are not obvious from the outside. You do not just earn more, you enter a cost tier that demands more. And the gap between what you earn and what responsible participation in that cost tier requires is much narrower than the income number implies. The problem is not the income. The problem is the architecture the income has to support. This is what I call the responsible adult trap. The responsible adult trap is not a single bad decision. It is a system of individually correct decisions that, when assembled together, leave almost no room for meaningful wealth accumulation. Nothing inside it looks reckless. Every line looks like exactly what a responsible adult should be doing. Here is why it works the way it does. When income rises, three things happen at roughly the same time. First, the paycheck passes through a tax filter after pre-tax payroll deductions have already been removed. Federal income tax, payroll tax through FICA and Medicare, and state income tax, each take their portion before the remaining income becomes available to spend. In this example, that tax filter removes roughly $1,600 per month after the 401k contribution and health insurance premium have already been handled through payroll. Second, housing expectation shift. A 110K household qualifies for and typically inhabits housing at a price point that a 70K household does not, which means the monthly obligation is larger. Third, the full insurance and maintenance structure of responsible middle class life. Health coverage, disability coverage, life insurance, property insurance, car insurance, all price according to what you have to protect, which also scales up. The result is a cost architecture that assembles quietly, decision by decision, each one sensible, until the household is fully committed to a structure that absorbs most of what it earns. Not because of waste, because of the price of participation in responsible adult life at this income level. The second concept that lives inside this mechanism is what I call the normal life tax. Nobody sends you a bill for it. It shows up as the gap between what you earn and what you actually keep. And at 110K, running a household correctly, that gap is significant enough to surprise most people who have never mapped it out before. Let us map it out, because the moment you see the full picture, the architecture becomes impossible to unsee. Meet a household we will call Household A. $110,000 in gross annual income. Let us call it $9,167 a month. 2 adults, 2 kids. They own a home, they both drive, they have an employer health plan, and they are contributing to their 401k. Standard responsible household. Nothing unusual. Here is what the monthly cash flow actually looks like. Your paycheck runs through 2 rounds of reduction before it arrives in your bank account. Most people think about taxes. Almost nobody maps both rounds together, which is exactly how the full picture stays invisible. Stage 1, pre-tax payroll deductions, removed before income tax is calculated. Your 401k contribution at 6% of gross, the standard threshold for capturing the employer match, is deducted before any income tax is applied. At 110K gross, that is $550 per month. Your employer health insurance family plan, premium, the employee share, is also taken pre-tax under your employer's Section 125 plan, the program that allows employers to deduct premiums from your paycheck before income taxes are calculated. The national average employee share for a family plan is $525 per month. Total pre-tax deductions, 1 to 75 month. These are gone before the tax calculation even begins. Stage 2, taxes, calculated after pre-tax deductions, reduce the taxable base. For a 110K household filing jointly in a moderate tax state, effective federal income tax, 6 to 8%, FICA and Medicare, 7.65% of full gross wages. That is the Social Security and Medicare payroll tax, taken from your full gross wages before any deductions apply. State income tax, 3 to 5%. Combined tax burden after those pre-tax deductions, approximately $1,500, $1,700 per month. For this example, we will use about $1,600. Screen overlay, do not read aloud, IRS 2025. 110 MFJ, standard deduction. $30,000, taxable income, after pre-tax deductions, approximately $67,000, in the 12% federal bracket. FICA applies to full gross wages. State tax is illustrative. Actual take-home varies by state of residence. Net take-home after all deductions and taxes, $6,400 to $6,500 per month. We will use $6,500 for a moderate tax state. From that $6,500 in net monthly take home, with the 401k already funded and the health insurance already handled before this number exists, here is what the remaining obligations look like: mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, on a home at a price consistent with a 110K household at current rates, $2,200 to $2,400 per month. We will use $2,300. Two car payments, $1,000 to $200 per month. We will use $100. Childcare for two children. The national average is $2,180 per month for two children. We will use $1,800. Below the national average to account for regional variation, noting that households in higher cost metros will be significantly closer to $2,200. Groceries and household consumables for a family of four. The USDA moderate food cost plan runs $1,250 to $1,030 per month. We will use $100, a conservative estimate for a budget-conscious household, well below the USDA moderate benchmark. Utilities, phone, internet, $350 to $450. We will use $400. Life and disability insurance, $150 to $250 per month for appropriate coverage at this life stage. We will use $200. Total post-take-home monthly obligations, $6,900. Net take-home, $6,500. Post-tax obligations, $6,900. This household, with their retirement funded at the match threshold, their health coverage secured, their mortgage paid, their cars running, their children in care, and their family insured against catastrophic loss, is running a monthly deficit of $400 before they have bought a single meal at a restaurant, paid for a child's activity, handled any home repair, taken any vacation, or addressed any goal beyond the 401k match. And remember, this is not after bad spending. This is before bad spending even has a chance to happen. The money does not disappear because of one bad decision. It disappears because every responsible decision arrives with a monthly payment. This household is not broke in the traditional sense. They are fully committed. This is the responsible adult trap in full operation. Not one bad decision in sight, a structural deficit built entirely from correct choices. Your household may not match this one exactly. The mortgage may be rent. The childcare may be student loans, medical costs, or a family member you support financially. The specific line items change. The architecture, the way individually correct commitments assemble into a cost structure that consumes the margin, does not. Now, let us run this forward. Because the monthly snapshot is only part of the story, and the 10-year picture is what makes the architecture's real cost visible. Let us run this forward. This household currently runs a structural deficit. Closing that gap and building real surplus requires income growth or an obligation that expires. But the moment they free up $400 per month through a raise that does not inflate the cost structure, a car loan that ends, or childcare costs that age out over the next few years, here is what that margin actually means over time. Monthly margin, $450, illustrative average. Annual, $5,400. Over 10 years, with no investment growth, $54,000. Now apply that $450 per month to an investment account earning a 7% average annual return. The S&P 500's approximate 100-year historical average, and a reasonable long-run equity market assumption, not a guarantee. Over 10 years at 7%. approximately $78,000. Verified. $450 a month at 7% a year for 120 months, 77,943s. Standard compound interest formula confirmed. $78,000 in investable wealth over a decade from a household earning $110,000 a year. That is the math. Not because this household failed, not because they spent carelessly, because the cost architecture of doing everything right at this income level, in this housing market, with children, consumes the lion's share of what they earn. And this is where I want to name the real cost, not the nominal number, but what the constraint actually takes from this household. The $78,000 is the money story. But the real cost is harder to quantify. These are the options that disappear when every dollar already has a destination before the month begins. The career pivot you cannot afford to take because every month must be funded. The business idea that stays an idea. The year of flexibility. To care for a parent, finish a degree, or simply recalibrate, that households with margin can access and this household cannot. Those options exist for people with margin. They are largely unavailable from inside this architecture. That is what the cost structure actually costs, beyond the number. And here is the part that makes this situation so confusing. There is no villain in the budget. Nothing looks irresponsible when you inspect it one line at a time. The mortgage looks fine. The car looks fine. The insurance looks fine. The problem is not any single line. The problem is what all the lines add up to. And that total is never shown to you in one place until a moment like this one. Here is why most people inside this situation do not see it clearly until someone maps it out for them. Each decision that built this cost structure was made at a different time, in a different context, for a different reason. The mortgage was a housing decision. The car payment was a transportation decision. The health insurance was an HR enrollment decision. The childcare was a family logistics decision. Nobody ever sat down and looked at the cumulative effect of all of them simultaneously until the month the numbers stopped working. This is how the responsible adult trap assembles itself. It does not announce its arrival. It builds quietly, one reasonable decision at a time, until the architecture is complete and the margin is gone. And because each individual decision was reasonable, there is no obvious place to assign the problem. Which is why so many people in this situation carry a vague, persistent sense that they must be doing something wrong, when in fact they are doing almost everything right. They are just doing it inside a cost structure nobody explained before they signed up for it. Here's the thing about a well-understood system. It has levers. This cost architecture has 3, but only one of them is accessible to most households in the near term. Lever 1, income. If total household income increases through a promotion, a job change, a side income stream, the fixed obligations stay roughly flat in the short term, and the margin expands. This is real. A $15,000 increase from 110K to 125K converts a $400 monthly deficit into roughly $450 per month in surplus. The same obligation structure, a completely different financial position. The key is the phrase, if the cost structure does not immediately inflate. That is where the Raise Disappearing Act lives. Prevent the structure from inflating for 12 months after any income increase, and the margin becomes real. Allow it to inflate immediately, and you are back to 400. Lever 2, structure. If one or more of the fixed obligations can be restructured, a car paid off and not replaced with a payment, a refinance that reduces the mortgage servicing cost, a childcare arrangement that changes in 2 or 3 years, The monthly commitment drops and the margin appears without a change in income. For most households, this lever operates on a timeline of 2 to 5 years. It requires patience and deliberate decision making at the next natural transition point. The most common version: the car loans end and the household makes a deliberate choice not to replace them with new car payments. Lever 3: time. This one is already working for you, whether you feel it or not. The 401k contributions this household is making, even at the modest margin they have, are compounding. The mortgage principal is being paid down. The children's childcare costs will decrease or end. In 3 to 5 years, the cost structure of this household will look different from its structure today, not because of dramatic action, but because the timeline changes the inputs. Time does not fix everything. But for a household doing the fundamentals correctly, time is not neutral. It is working in the background even when the monthly math feels static. The practical rule: do not change the structure in ways that relock the obligations just as they are about to expire. If a car loan ends in 18 months, that $550 per month is about to become available. Do not immediately replace it with a new payment for a new car. Let it convert to margin first. That single decision, repeated at each natural expiration point, is how the architecture loosens over time. You are not behind because you failed at personal finance. You are inside a cost architecture that was built one correct decision at a time, and nobody ever showed you the full picture before you finished building it. That is what this video is: the picture. And now that you have it, you can see where the system actually gives you room to move. The normal life tax is real. It is not a moral failing. It is the price of responsible participation in the life you have built. The question is not whether the cost was worth it. Most of it was. The question is what you do at the next decision point, now that you can see the full map. One lever, used deliberately at the right moment, changes the math. If what you just saw in this video felt familiar, if you recognized your own household in that cash flow map, that is the point. This channel exists for people who are running their finances responsibly and still feel like the math is not cooperating. The next video in this series goes one step further. What do you do with the first $500 of margin you recover? Because the order of operations matters more than most people realize, and getting it wrong at that point can send the margin right back into the cost structure. If you found this useful, subscribe, but more importantly, bookmark it. Come back to it the next time you're about to make a major financial commitment: a car, a house upgrade, an insurance change. Run your own version of this map before you sign anything. That is what this channel is for. This is not about getting rich. It is about understanding the system you're already inside and making the next decision with clear eyes.